Well, Carmel, we are live on HISadvocates.tv, YouTube, and hopefully soon we're going to be streaming out to a lot of servers. I want to say thank you, brother, for just joining and trying to do something that's fun, between a couple of guys and where we get to hang out and talk about a bunch of gibberish. And tonight's topic is one of those that I'm quite familiar with, and you had an eye-opening experience tonight a little bit, and I've been kind of saying it for years. I wanted you to share with everybody what you experienced tonight when you were watching that video on TikTok, and how it kind of took you back a little bit and you really had to think about it. And then let's start there, because that's a great conversation to have.
Yeah. So I rarely get on TikTok. And when I do, typically it's like I'll jump in and hear something and just stay on or stay off, whatever. But today I heard something as soon as I jumped into this live. It said, either you're 100% free or 100% a slave. And that really shocked me, because I kind of knew that, but it wasn't.
It's kind of correct. It's mostly correct. It's correct for a U.S. citizen. Yeah,
100%. Right. So the way he said it, though, was really, and in the group, it was just silence. And so that made me stay. So I stayed in that live for like 45 minutes. And a lot of the information was really good. Stuff I've heard before, stuff you've mentioned. But just the way this guy presented it was very unique. And one of the things he touched on heavily is that it doesn't matter how much these forms you do, correcting your status, having all this stuff. You can know UCC codes, all whatever, but you know who you are. And once you understand who you are in the grand scheme of things, in God, you have God's DNA in you. So you should act like that in every situation. And the thing is, you've been programmed not to. And okay. So yeah, I stayed in that live for like 45 minutes. I'm rarely on TikTok, but that was such an eye-opening, ear-opening statement.
It's irony that you say that, because since 2012, I've been on a freedom tour. And did a lot of seminars where I spoke in front of a lot of people, and I got to understand something about contract law and adhesion contracts and this, that, and the other. I didn't really. I was just starting to address state citizenship and national of the United States and these different definitions and stuff. But I always told people, and I've been saying this for years, you're only as good as your latest contract. And part of that is just the general sentiment of being awake, that general sentiment of understanding who you are. And it's funny you say that, because I created a whole video on who are you, or who, and it's like this 5-hour video of showing the world and really what the world was to me at that time, and the scary nature of everything, and why you wanted to be a state citizen. And then people, and here's the funny thing, Carmel, some people are like, you don't want to be a citizen, you don't want to be a national, you don't want to be this. Well, technically you define who you are. And so, like with what we do, we write a clean explanatory statement attaching it to the Department of State DS-11 for a passport. And a lot of people just don't even get the fact that you actually can, because the United States is a corporation. The United States of America is not. And just stop. Just that alone, you've opened a crap can of worms for everybody to consider. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, you're a conspiracy nut job, you're full of it. And so I started coming from, for me, the most important thing for me was to determine what the law says. And so on HISadvocates.org, we posted, and we're getting ready to post a white paper in the next few days. We got some more work to do on it. We're making some revisions, but we posted about 80 Supreme Court rulings. And I said 80. I didn't say 8 or 2 or 1. 80 that indicate what it is you actually can have here in this nation, which is defining yourself differently than being a corporate surety and slave. And the level that people you know, really need to be thinking about this for themselves is much bigger, much larger than they're doing, you know. And unfortunately, like with what you told me that guy said, I was actually in 100% agreement. You know, do they have the tools to help people out is the question. You know, do they have the systems? And again, it's, you become a state citizen, you have an God-given unalienable right to contract, and that means contract with a court. And these judges, listen, America, these judges, there's a few good ones, but they're predominantly there for, and I can show you in the which book is it? It's the Federal Rules of Procedure. I can no, it's the I'll think of it in a sec. It's, this book literally outlines that the judges are the trustees of the United States bankruptcy. And then when you click on that in your head and you look at the fact that they believe you're a ward of the state, they believe that you are their property, and that when you become a warehoused good prisoner, you are way more profitable than a free man on the land. Now, that is so conspiratorial until you realize there's like 15 million people in prison. I know online it says 2 or 3 million, but there's a reality that all the jails and everybody incarcerated today, there's about 15 to 20 million people in prison in this nation. So it doesn't become a conspiracy anymore, you know? And then that's where most of the people are getting educated, because there's a few guys that have nothing better to do inside, and they start talking all these terms like sovereign citizen and all these lame, you know, things that don't really make any sense. And those are things that really I want to kind of expose with you today and talk about a little bit. But great title, Carmel, Land of the Free. No, only for the awake.
Yeah.
Think about that. Do you think George Washington, the people that created the Declaration of Independence, meaning John Hancock, these guys who sat in this room, these white guys, do you think that they were saying this is only going to be for us? Or do you think they were saying, like, we can develop this out if it sticks? You know, they created it. They started a Revolutionary War. They fought for our freedom. Then they developed the Constitution 15 years later, 1776 to 1791, with the Bill of Rights. Do you think that these guys are sitting back going, man, they don't have a clue of what we're doing here? And why that phrase that Ben Franklin said, it's a republic, ma'am, if you can keep it. And he didn't say if our army can keep it. He said if you personally. And when people digest that we all now for the first time ever have a personal opportunity to be directly under God. And that's really what the law says. The Supreme Court has ruled this. That really changes the scope of all humanity and our ability to do things that we never thought we were able to do before. That really sets a different landscape up for us. And that's really the discussion point. It's like, that's why 2 weeks ago I created a video for HISadvocates. And I said, Donald Trump can't restore your republic. I mean, he can, the republic's already restored, but he can't help you personally to come out of being a bond slave. That's your choice. That's a God-given unalienable right to be a bond slave to a corporation.
Yeah, I don't think people understand. Again, and to this guy's credit, and I'll send you his profile so you can see when he goes live again, because he wasn't like really pushing his own profile. He seemed like a guy who just knew a lot what he was talking about. He mentioned that it's all your duty to do, and it's just you have to do the work and figure it out, and it's a process. He says, but at the end of the day, like, the power is with you. Like anything, they need your signature. Like, it's you. You are the power. The current, it says, if you think about being the current of currency, who gets charged? You get charged. It's you. Everything revolves around you. But then you don't understand that, so you contract yourself, and now you're in a situation where now they get to use you. You're not governing yourself, so they have to govern you. So a lot of times he said things that I was like, okay, that's why I sent you the link. I mean, this guy's sounds all right. And the thing about sovereign citizen is someone wrote that in the chat, and I'm telling you, 4 or 5 people jumped on them like the hell is that? That's not a thing. Don't ever say that. I'm like, oh, okay. These people are on point here. And what I liked about the TikTok, and one, again, this is actually a credit to TikTok, because my daughters use it. I'm like, I jump on it now and then, but I keep seeing good information on there. But one guy just started this process, and he mentioned a form called the official state office of person, or the person, or something like that. So I hadn't heard of that before. I'm not sure what that form is. What do you know what that is exactly?
Yeah, no, 100%. He's talking about basically and here's I mean, we can break this really down for people so they get it, but the reality is most people never understand or believe what I'm about to say. The U.S. citizen is the birth certificate. Again, a corporation can be a United States citizen. Look it up. That's not Kelby. That is truth. That means a robot can be a United States citizen. So when you start thinking about what is a citizen, you can define it any way you want. And that's why if what I just said wasn't true, you couldn't take the DS-11, meaning the form for the passport, where it says right in the oath of office, tell us who you are and provide an explanatory statement about what your beliefs are if you think if anything on this form really needs to be changed. And so you do that. And so we provide an explanatory statement about 5 pages. We show allegiance to the Declaration. We define Supreme Court rulings that allow for us to be free, allow for us to operate. And we don't, we're very clear, but the holding of the office of the person, that's what you're talking about, correct?
I guess so. I'm not sure. It was some kind of form or some kind of document. He said, you have to start here. This is the first thing you do. Yeah.
So that's pretty much one of the first few things that we do outside of the passport application, because you no longer are going to be, how you become surety and the collateral for the debt of the nation is you have a job with the United States as U.S. citizen. The job is called U.S. citizen. The employment ID number is the social security number. And what you're doing is you're walking your corporate paperwork in, called the birth certificate. You're walking it into the DMV and you're applying for a position to become a driver. So you're holding an office called U.S. citizen. You're using it at the DMV to get a driver job, where they respond with a test and both paper and an actual outside driving test to become a commercial driver, even though you're not getting paid for it. So it's a position you've never been paid by the United States for. And there's a lot of arguments that a lot of people have had with judges about, I've never received a check for driving. I'm not a commercial driver. And they start bringing up Supreme Court rulings about it and get cases dismissed all the time because a lot of it is garbage. And so when you are looking at these jobs that you're given, you're holding offices. And so one of the offices that you're holding is the acceptance of the mail at the United States Post Office for the artificial person, which is the BC. So you notice every time you are applying for a job at the Social Security Administration, at the IRS, your job at the IRS is called taxpayer. And you look at their paperwork, you're self-identifying that. It is an adhesion trust. They don't, just so that people understand what that means, it's kind of like all of the public franchises, DMV, IRS, SSA, voters, all of them are adhesion public franchises where they're creating these trust documents, these trust indentures that are self-executing jobs that you need to identify your position as beneficial interest on and no longer trustee or surety of those job positions. And you do that a number of ways, but we've at His Advocates have perfected a way to handle all of those job positions. And after 14 or 15 years, not only do we get a passport as a state citizen, we've perfected the way for people to keep a driver's license in their pocket with a newly contracted, a new meaning of relationship with the DMV. See, and this is super important for people to understand how. It's a lawfully executed administrative process. And Carmel, just like people are stealing homes, like banks, they don't steal homes all the time. There's some states that are judicial and some states that are non-judicial. Those non-judicial states, banks are sending notices of sale, notices of eviction, and all of that's done outside of the courts. And then people are, they've transferred the title, and then a realtor reaches out. They bang on the door at 5 o'clock in the morning, scare people. They SWAT the house sometimes. It's all threat, duress, coercion, intimidation, and to get you to leave the house non-judicially. Well, we're doing the same thing to them, minus the SWAT team, minus the realtors, minus all that stuff. But we're creating new contracts with the DMV that are lawfully done and executed, changing your position from holding an office called driver, changing your position holding an office called taxpayer. Here's the biggest one, Carmel, is people don't realize the IRS has embedded in the code, and I've dealt with many CPAs on this, embedded in the code. I love it when people say, I just had the other night, and I went off on a lady for about 20 minutes, which, by the way, she accepted my invitation. I'll explain later, Carmel.
Okay.
She accepted my position for a debate, which we're going to do. And but the funny thing is, I love dealing with CPAs and attorneys and people that are in the know, and we'll just do this, we'll do this. And the answers are so simple, and it's just, here's the ruling, and how you're going to serve that. And have you ever seen this in court? And the answer is no. Good luck, never. And so we're going to be addressing a CPA or somebody that's done accounting for 30 years, and she doesn't know the simplest of things of public versus private, or a revocation of election. And this is one of my exciting things that I get to share with people. Inside of the IRS code, which most people can't find or can't read through, stack of papers 1.5 feet tall, is a revocation of election. Now, people ask what that means. Go look in the code. Anytime somebody gives you an in, they have to give you an out. So whenever you are involuntarily voluntary, being a volunteer, whether you knowing or unknowingly becoming a volunteer for something, the IRS is 100% a voluntary system. Congress has said this for years. So anytime that you are operating in a voluntary system, you have the opportunity to revoke that election. And bro, that is just, that alone, that one company alone, is one of the biggest benefits about coming out. And I have not dealt with the IRS, and my last return I filed was 2012, and the only reason why I filed is because there were some W-4s on it, which means I contracted with the corporation, and therefore, and at the time I didn't have my revocation done, I didn't have my status done, and I was using the social, and I signed a contract called a W-4. So when I received a W-2, I had an obligation to, as the trustee, to fulfill the trust, which is the 1040, and make sure I was filing a return so they can set the debt off. And I just said a mouthful, but that's a lawful way to look at a trust and trust contract and contract law, because that 1040 is a trust. You're self-executing, and they are the grantor. Look at the title of the trust, IRS. It's me. I get it. They're the beneficiary. Look at the back. I'm going to receive the funds. You're going to pay. You're the taxpayer. You're literally the only one signing the trust agreement saying, yep, I'm a taxpayer. Yep, I'm the U.S. citizen. Yep, I'm the surety. I'm the collateral for the debt of the nation. These two don't directly say that, but your 1040 does say the first two. And then you're self-executing away your freedom. So for me, it's like, holy crap, you know, I'm at this point where I can't believe that we are doing these things, and giving up our freedoms in this capacity or in this way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is lack of knowledge, and I'll refer again back to this TikTok live I was in, where the gentleman made a point that a lot of it is programming. Like, you are just taught this from a very early age, and you just continue to contract yourself to these things because it's just what your parents did, and you just what you see. But like, you have to take a second and think, if you need my signature on this thing, then I'm really the person who's in charge. But you don't understand that. Like, you think it's the court, you think it's the police officer, you think it's the judge, you think it's you. But until you take back that power legally, correctly, lawfully, you're going to continue to be in that position. And one thing he also made a point was that, like you just said, whatever comes in comes out. There's a phrase that he used even in court. Like, if this is a contract, there should be some reciprocity. If I'm giving something, I should be getting something back. And if I'm not, then there's a problem here. None of us think that way. None of us going into that situation think
like, driver, why do I have to pay to drive? The reality is, listen, guys, for everybody that doesn't, there is no requirement in law anywhere. There's statutes and code that are requirement for U.S. citizens and or people that want to take on that position. But it's been already determined by the Supreme Court that a United States citizen does not have an obligation to have a driver's license to drive a motor vehicle, period. And does law enforcement know that? Heck to the no.
And he made a point about that, the law enforcement. Someone asked a question about, how do you handle being pulled over? And he made it clear that, like, I'm not here to fight them, but there's an opportunity to educate them. He says they are policy enforcers. That's what police means. They're enforcing policy. They don't understand it. They don't know what's going on. So this is my opportunity to educate them. And he also says I let them know ahead of time that if this goes any further, I'm going to invoice them and charge their bond. He says all these cops have a $2 million bond. And if this goes past any more than 15 minutes, he says, I have a obligation to charge them. And so I give them an invoice. And so usually, he says, the traffic stops don't take very long. But the way he was discussing this with the people, it was really clear that, one, he knew what he was talking about, but two, he understands, and then what people need to know is that, yeah, these cops don't know. Like, you can't go out there and it's not about fighting them. Is a lot of people don't know what's going on. They just have a job. And I remember when you told me this about going to get my passport, is that the postal workers, they don't know what's going on. They just have a job to do. So you're going to present these documents they've never seen before. They probably never had a person come in and get a passport without any social, without anything else, just a picture and me and some documents. And you have the chance to just educate them. So I think that's what and I jumped in on the live and said this, that, you know, the Bible says, my people die because of lack of knowledge. If you don't know, they're going to keep taking advantage of you. If you don't take the time to figure out what's going on and play the game, where you're going to lose all the time. And it's really a big game. A lot of that's why it's called court. It's a game. You get in court, you're going to lose if you don't know the rules. Now, he also made a point as well. You also don't have to go to court. If you know how to file documentation and paperwork correctly, if you have, stamps, if you have things attached to it, they don't want you in court. He's like, if you know what you're doing and you send back the right paperwork, they're going to leave you alone. So I say all that to say is, if you get stuff together correctly, and I've heard you say this. Now, again, he validated this. The IRS is not going to mess with you. Courts don't want to mess with you. They'll leave you alone. The problem is people just don't know.
It's 100%. You know, you want to hear something crazy? A lot of times, like we are able to, at HISadvocates, determine status of applications for people as they're going through the passport process by going to passportstatus.state.gov or something like that. And because we're in the last few years, we've started now doing round 2. It's going past 10 years. So we've done state citizens way back before 2015. And so myself, I just applied again. But what we're seeing, Carmel, is the second time around, there is no update for somebody who's gone through the process before. So I want you to think about that. So you're not in the system in a traditional form or traditional sense. Like I can't even see what using the traditional way of getting a status update on a passport like I used to. And then, but they're still mailing me. And we created a different type of response for somebody who already has their certified documents and acceptance as a state citizen from the Department of State. We now send a letter with, you know, all the attachments and all of that. But there is a real component to what we are talking about. It's not just a Supreme Court thing, you know. Thank God the administration now is in office. I still have some worries about that, but thank God, because literally China was creating police stations all over the world just as a kind of a test. And it was originally to go after their own dissidents or going after their own citizens that were abroad. And they were doing threat and duress to their citizens. But guess what? They were on our land in New York City. And they were in Australia and Sydney. And they were all over. And the boys down in Sydney had an uproar and kicked their butts out, closed the office down, took down their Chinese flag and raised the Australian flag back up. The people in New York kicked them out and held, and the guys were arrested for operating a foreign government on our land or without permission from the United States or whatever the stuff. There is jurisdiction stuff, fights happening all the time. Yeah. If there wasn't, you wouldn't have a Supreme Court making a decision. You wouldn't have Indian reservations. You wouldn't have these terms like, you know, whatever, national of the United States, which, by the way, those are tricks. There's people out there that are leading people astray with misunderstanding the intention of a national 8 USC 1101-821. It is not the free man on the land that you want to be as a state citizen. Ben Franklin never said, I'm a national. You know, he was a state citizen, but the reality is you need to understand what state means, and in Black's Law means multiple things. And I could really break this down and go through it for people, but I do that all the time, Carmel, and I'm honestly, the sad thing is it starts with the parents, like that guy said. It starts with the reality check that when you get a marriage license, literally there's a Supreme Court ruling that says the product of the union belongs to the state. So it starts with us not understanding contract law, bringing a state into our private union and then allowing them to have rule and reign over our children. I just saw an Amish family have their kids stolen and them arrested and put into jail for 11 days. And they haven't seen their kids in 22 days. All because she did not want them to inject their kid at the hospital or do tests on the kids. So they made up a false report, said that she had syphilis, and therefore the guidance and recommendations of the doctor that she said do not do. They called in CPS. They stole the kids. They isolated her, tied the husband to a chair. Imagine being an Amish guy with a beard, relationship with the Lord, true man of God. Imagine this, that you're watching your kids being stolen from your hands. Carmel, that's a death sentence for anybody that takes a kid of mine. And I knew that from the bottom of my heart. I will fight for people and fight for innocence, because there is no other term for what happened than kidnapping. And I said, let me get this right. You have a false accusation of syphilis that was against you that you later determined was a false positive. They did the same on your kid. They tested your kid. They injected your kid without your consent or permission. And I walked this down and I told them what they needed to do. Why are we living in a time to which it's so important to control a mother and a father's decision for their own child? Why is it so important? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing that I got out of this TikTok today is people just want to be left alone. Like, just leave me alone. Like, I don't like if I have to give up any privileges I've gotten, any benefits, okay, fine, I'll figure it out. But just leave me alone. One gentleman just had a child in this TikTok live, and he made a point of this is his first kid that he wanted a copy of the live born record, and he said the nurse kind of fought him on it, and he stood his ground and he made sure he got it. And he's told the audience, like, I felt nervous, but I felt like I accomplished something. Everyone cheered. Like, no, bro, that's great. Like, it's the first step into learning like what power you have, and you're gonna meet some resistance. But then it made me think, like, why is there resistance? Like, what? Like, I understand you don't know because it's your job, but then what are you fighting for? Like, what is CPS showing up? Why is everyone coming to take these kids away from these people? Like, what are you really trying to do? That leads me to the things where people really get conspiratorial. Like, we know kids are being snatched.
Oh, so, bro, stop. CPS is the largest kidnapping agency on the face of the earth. I know of parents that have never gotten their kids back, never been able to see their kids inside of CPS. False allegations made up by the parents or made up by CPS regarding the parents. A parent doesn't need, look, I think at this time, we really need to have the moral conversation about how to protect the family unit. Carmel, listen. Do you think the medical establishment is making good decisions for men and women of the world as it relates to their health? No. I would say no. And I would say absolutely run. You know, you got guys like Dana White, the president of the UFC, starting for the first time to stand up and saying, I will never go to a medical doctor again as it relates for my health. He went to Gary Brecka, and Gary got him his energy back, got him his health back, because medical doctors have less training than anybody on how to relate to the body as God intended. It's, you got this, prescribe this. You got this, prescribe this. And with those 4 billion prescriptions in the United States every year, we are getting sick.
Yep.
And that's why people are trying to be free. That's why people are trying to own their kids. And by an operation of law in a very sneaking format with collusion, nurses, doctors, police, CPS, all in collusion over a mother who just did the hardest thing in her life, gave birth.
Right.
Just went through absolute hell. They literally come in and take your baby out of your arms and bring a charge to you saying, we got a phone call because you weren't allowing them to do tests. And it says here you have syphilis. I have never been with anybody but my husband, and you're saying I'm giving my daughter or son congenital, what is it? Congenital, I don't know, syphilis, meaning done through the pregnancy. And I'm like, but when I found out it was a false positive, I'm like, for the love of God, and I actually said a prayer for these guys. I'm like, for the love of God, please find an attorney, because it's one thing to play the sovereign game. That's what I call it. And try to get your kid back. It's another thing to play it with authority holding your kid. When your kid is in their arms, it's a completely different ride than when your kid is. It's just like the guy who's in jail trying to get out on a jurisdictional challenge. What they do is they take him around and they do a program. It's called diesel therapy. They don't ever let him sleep. They don't give him a place to consider. They don't give him pencils. They don't give him pads of paper. They don't give him a toothbrush. They take him on buses from court to court to court to court because he is challenging jurisdiction. And it takes about a year to a year and a half, and it is hell on earth. And he is violated in every way to Sunday. But if he stays the course, they can't use his signature to incarcerate him with. It's that simple. I can't tell you how many people I know who've gone through diesel therapy. Some have lost. 45 days in, they got a family. They're thinking about their family. They got some public defender that's been assigned to them. They're not allowed to say anything in court. They're not allowed to represent themselves. They think that the guy is crazy, and they've told him to shut up, and he doesn't know what to do or how to respond. He can't make a phone call. He's not allowed an attorney of his own choosing. He's not allowed to not have an attorney. He's forced a PD, a public defender. I mean, the games that these guys play to control the masses is very real.
Yeah.
So you have to be smart and not get in trouble in the first place. And that's the big one.
I think it's funny, not funny, but like when you just said to have someone represent you, this guy in this TikTok today, he said, if you think about what that means, think about all the words we're using when it comes to court. When you come into court by yourself and you have all your documentation and everything together, you're telling the court who you are. If you get an attorney, the word attorney means to transfer or change. And then that attorney is not representing you. He's representing you. And it's just the same word, but it's how you say it. This person now that you got.
And two different meanings.
Two different meanings. But no one thinks that. It's just this person now you think is representing on your behalf. That's not what they're doing. They're representing you to the judges. Here's what this person is. Versus you taking control and you saying who you are. And it's, yeah, it's easier to go get someone to do that. But taking control, taking the power back is what's important. And then he mentioned this phrase, the confidence man. I didn't have a chance to look at it, but a couple of people have mentioned it. But I'm assuming it's some kind of state of mind. And some people mentioned some other things in there, like the Kabbalion and Meta-Netter and a lot of like esoteric thought processes around this. But a lot of it's about you having to have this mindset that you're not going to be denied, and you have the DNA of God in you. He also mentioned that using the Bible in court works too. He says they all have to.
Let me tell you the words in court to use. There's a big variable here in when and how. But the first, before we do that, I want to read to you so everybody understands, because I don't think they get what an attorney is. Because you brought up a great matter, Carmel. In corpus, in 7 Corpus Juris Secundum, subsection 4, attorney-client privilege, his duty is first to the courts and the public, not to the client. So his first duty is to the state, then the courts, and then the client. So what you're dealing with is somebody who is literally a ward to the state being represented by an attorney who has an oath to the state, and then to the court, and then to you. You're literally, at the moment of retainment, a ward of the state, and with no ability to speak on your own behalf. The deal that is made is whatever the deal that the state wants, not what the attorney wants, not what you want. It's whatever the state wants. So you instantly lose when you retain an attorney, period. The conviction rate is through the roof for anybody that uses an attorney, because they settle 99% of these in the favor of the state. Think about how many times somebody was charged with something. They can't afford a true legal or due process according to the 4th Amendment, or a meeting of the jury of your peers, 25 grand jurors, to determine if you're going to be indicted so that you can face the accuser one-on-one, which is due process. That's the right due process. Nobody gets that anymore. It's an indictment right away. It's that true bill right away, and then you're instantly, if you walk into that court alone, they're going to determine an attorney for you, and then they're going to say you're crazy. They're going to say you need to be quiet. They're going to put you in jail. They're going to hold you in contempt until you accept an attorney. Why? Because his first duty is to the courts and the public, meaning the state, and not to the client. It's a sad day. It's all smoke and mirrors, Carmel.
So
and
to
that's
that,
something people don't realize.
This gentleman, he again, I'd love to have him on the show because he was really sharp. But he said the same thing about this. If you're going to use me and take my time and do this, I'm going to invoice you, and I have the right and obligation to do so.
That is the first thing that we do for everybody, Carmel. And we go after the bonds and attach it to the bonds. People don't realize, like, even an attorney, if they get complaints, over 2 complaints, they lose their ability to be bonded, which means they lose their ability to appear in public courts. There's so many ways to slice this. And unfortunately, if we were just honoring the initial oaths of office that all these people are quote unquote taking, not necessarily. Here's something you really need to know. Like in California, and people are winning with this method, the Constitution in California requires that a judge not be an attorney. Now I want you to just stop and think about that. In California, an Article 6 court is the California law of the land. And in Article 6 court, you cannot have an attorney as a judge. So all you have to do is disqualify the judge based on the Constitution and the oath of office to which he upholds, because he is double-minded and he cannot proceed forward on cases. And this is what a lot of people do in their own cases in California. And it just stays in this proverbial spin. And sometimes if they're already incarcerated and not bonded or not out, they'll diesel therapy that guy until he settles. And this is not due process anymore. We're at a point where it's, let's jail as many people as we can, because they're making money on these prison bonds. And if you were to actually look at the Form 750s, you will see that many of these judges are not talking about what they're actually making on these prison bonds. They're all making money on the prison bonds. And it goes way back to a conversation in the 90s, Carmel, where everybody got together in Hollywood Hills, a bunch of black entertainers and white entertainers, but largely speaking to the black community, about creating lyrics and rap that were no longer supportive to the community, but were bringing people to a point where they were going to prison in much larger and much faster numbers, because it was a very profitable industry. More clients. A client is a prisoner to our judicial system. If you actually looked at how much money the Orange County Court makes, 15 years ago, I got to see a P&L for 1 month over $1 billion. 1 month.
Wow.
502s, tickets, all bonds over $1 million. They made so much money. 1,000 million, Carmel, 1 month.
What does the court do with that money? That's crazy. Like, what are you doing with this money? What is the state doing with this money? Why are you having to collect this much money from the people of this state? Like, what's the point? And you're gonna tax us on top of it.
You know what the funny thing is? It's you have an officer of the court makes a complaint to the state, works for the state, gets paid by the state. You have a DA, works for the state, gets paid by the state, makes a charge. You have a public defender, works for the state, gets paid by the state to defend you. But we all know what corpus juris secundum just said. It said the first duty of an attorney, even your public defender, is what? To the state. And then to what? The court. And then to you. Public defender is not defending you. Okay, an attorney is not defending you. However, I've seen attorneys do their dang job and win cases for clients. So there's this, you know, debatable discussion there. But then you have the judge, supposed to be third party neutral. No, he's got an oath to the British accredited registry, the bar. Okay, they are an esquire under the King of England. Okay, you think that's crazy conspiracy? No, that's exactly what it means. That's where we're at today. So the second you're walking into a case, you're not into an Article 6 court or, you know, a federal, you know, court. You're in an administrative court, an admiralty court, and the flags prove it. And so you really got to think about where you're at, what you're standing, what everything means. Just like the word bar, that swinging bar going into court, it literally means jurisdiction. The second you walk into that swinging bar, you're stepping onto an admiralty vessel to which you better know who you are. And if you go in there waiving your rights and allowing for an attorney to represent you, you've already lost the whole thing before it even starts. And people think, oh, that's just a conspiracy. No, brother, it's in corpus juris secundum, and they're all a party to it. They all work for one state. They all have an oath to the state. And you, my friend, are nothing but a ward that they make money on the second they send you to prison. They all make money. And the judges are invested in these prison bonds. And don't think for a second attorneys aren't doing the same thing on the side. We don't even know. It's nothing more than Pelosi's picks in the stock market. Man, that woman went from 20 million to 250 million in 3 or 4 years. And there's literally people that follow them on an app and do Pelosi's picks, and then everybody follows that pick, does that, you know, investment, and then they're up 75%, just like Nancy Pelosi. Man, I want to get the judges' picks. I want to do the judges. Those guys are the whales.
Oh, yeah.
Why aren't they going to prison though, Carmel? It's because it's all out in the open.
Right.
There is no Article 1 federal court anymore. It's all administrative process. But then the second you start invoking your right, the second you start invoking your way, it's like, holy crap, we got a sovereign citizen here. Can you please explain yourself? Can you please, excuse me, sit down and shut up. Excuse me, we're going to have an evidentiary hearing on identification as to who you really are. Excuse me, I did not ask you to speak. If you say another word, I'm going to hold you in contempt. Contract offer. Somebody says, okay. When the judge says, do you understand me? And the guy says, yeah, I understand. Guess what? Acceptance of contract. The next time you open your mouth, you're in the jail. I have been surrounded in courts where a guy said he was going to arrest me if I said another word. I turned to the judge. I literally said, I'm not done speaking. I turned to the officer. I said, do not touch me. And there was a whole big old commotion, and it was over a stupid little minor thing. But they wanted to do the threat and the dress, and the cop racked his cuffs, got behind me, and I'm like, bro, stand down. I said, on and for the public record, there's an officer standing behind me under the threat of duress. The judge has told him to get off the bench, cut me off from being able to, and I went on this diatribe, and the judge says, all right, you may finish. Bro, we fail for a lack of knowledge. And it starts with just understanding simple contracts, birth certificates, marriage licenses, driver's licenses, all of it. We fail for a lack of knowledge. And it's disgusting what they're doing. And it's right there in the open. Esquire. Hello. What does that mean?
We're so used to these terms. We're so used to these things that we become so numb to it. And I think this always goes back to TV and film. And I always bring it up. And the more I watch for research, it just proves to me. Like, it was a great TV show years ago. I was a kid, LA Law. And I remember
loved it.
It was, yeah, it was. Now it's showing you a side of being a lawyer and the judges and all that stuff, and it made it sexy and
Yeah,
exciting,
yeah,
dramatic, right? But then
yeah.
you're really learning, not I should say learning, you're being indoctrinated about court. You're being indoctrinated about the system.
Right.
Not one episode in LA Law did they teach you what you just said. Right? You're not going
No.
to see that. You're not going to
No,
see
and I
that.
just backed it up. I just gave the reference to the corpus juris secundum, the record of where that can be found. And hey, look, I can also show people where it says the product of the marriage union belongs to the state. Why? Because marriage is a formal changed name of holy matrimony between you and God. Marriage is a license. It's an agreement between you and the state. Okay. Federal Reserve note. Anything where a Federal Reserve note, you don't realize they become a party to the transaction. So if you buy something with a Federal Reserve note, they're a party to the United States, or the Federal Reserve is a party to the transaction. There are so many things that we fail on in just getting our mind wrapped around, Carmel. It's like, which is why I loved what that guy said that you told me earlier is, you're only as good as your latest contract. That's what I say. Mm-hmm. You're only as good as your latest contract. The good news is it's knowing who you are is over time. But there's so many people out there they're just afraid to even walk into court. I know what court feels like. It is that ugly, disgusting. You get that thing, you get your heart going. You know you're going to get called. You know that they're going to treat you like crap. I mean, I've been there where judges were nasty to me, and all I was doing was just fighting for my life. And why can't we just start showing humankind decency and respect? I love what's going on in the FBI and the NSA and the DOJ and the White House right now, but is this for real, or are we on a show?
I think
are we on Washington D.C. law right now, just like LA law?
It's for sure dramatic cinema. But what I like most about this time, regardless of what Trump's intentions are, I do feel like it's an opportunity for the people to get back
100%.
to control. If you understand what's happening and look at it from that aspect, so I think what a lot of people look at is like, oh, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, here's what's going to happen. And like, no, stop. That's not what's going on. The whole party stuff, the people need to get off that. Look at how you can gain governance of yourself through what's happening. Look at what things are being destroyed, taken down, even challenged. Even Trump challenging these establishments is just shaking people to the core. Like, what? Getting rid of the FBI, CIA, IRS, these acronyms we've been so attached to for our entire life. Someone's coming in and saying, I'm going to end it. Like, what? Like, it's crazy. But I think if people, and again, it's not going to be for everybody. And that's one of the things that when I left that live today, that I got is that it's not for everybody. Not everybody's going to get it. There's people who are comfortable in the system, and that's okay. Like it's not.
Bro, there's people comfortable in jail.
Hey, they like their 3 squares. They get to work out. They're okay.
There was this. I was in for 3 counts of driving on a suspended license at age 19. 26 days I did it. The farm here in Orange County, and I say that because it's true. And I did another 100 days for another deal, and yet I was able to get it all squashed and have a broker's license and live my life out. But I remember being in the farm, and I remember fights happening, and I remember people wrapping up their pillowcases with pool balls and defending themselves. And I like, why would you give sticks and pool balls to prisoners? It's like, are you kidding me? Weapons, really? That's a bat. Really, it's a pull stick is really a bat. Anyway, I remember this kid. I got to know him. He had been incarcerated since the age of 12, and he was now 21. And I remember this rich guy, myself and him, and I was just sitting around listening. This kid was given an opportunity to move to Washington after he got out. What these guys do right before they get out is they cause a fight, and they end up buying themselves more time. And so they have to stay in another 4 to 6 months, and it's a minor charge, and they just they do whatever it takes to stay in because they don't know anything on the outside, and it's extremely scary for them. And that's kind of like the same thing for a United States citizen. They don't know they're incarcerated. This guy doesn't know he's incarcerated. That sounds weird.
Yeah.
But that's his home. That's his life.
Yeah.
That's how he lives. That's his 3 square meals. That's his cot. That's his toilet paper. That's his shower. That's all he knows. He knows if he does something, he gets 50 cents, 75 cents a week, whatever it is. Now he can buy a pack of smokes or some tobacco or whatever it is. That's his life.
Yeah.
The United States citizen, they don't know they're a prisoner. They don't have a clue because it's all embedded. That's the thing, Carmel. That's the thing. And I've been shouting this on the mountaintop. Hello, come out. And people think, oh, there's nothing to come out. It's great. Trump's back in the office now. I'm going to make a crap load on crypto. We don't have to pay taxes. No, brother, you are the surety for the debt of a defunct corporation that the world order is absolutely going to shut this whole masquerade down. And Trump's going to get involved somehow, some way, under the color of righteousness, under the color of good, to make a lot of money privately, to make a lot of money for the people. And ultimately, you're still a slave. You're still a surety. You're still the collateral for that defunct corp. And there's no other way to say it. And I'm not trying to be mean to people, but there's no other way to say it. You cannot be forced to like freedom. You can't be forced out of your contracts. Trump can't make that decision for people. This is a personal decision. Ben Franklin said it to the woman the best: a republic if you can keep it. Not if we can keep it for you, if you can keep it. So how important is it for you to not be a prisoner? God's word, meaning the Bible, says that if you're a slave, if you're a debtor, you're a slave. And it was so important back in the day, like even 100 years ago, you could read a newspaper, somebody would go to jail over $1 for their rent that they couldn't pay. Think about that, Carmel.
Yeah.
Think about that. People were going to jail for $1 they couldn't pay for their rent. There's going to be no different in the future. They're going to re-establish that. Debtor's prison. That's what they call it. And you went to prison until your debt was paid. So we're in a different world today. And I think they're going to reenact some of these things that we had of old.
I definitely think that they are. I think a lot of it, and this has been kind of controversial, a lot of what Hitler did in Germany is going to be instituted. And I think, again, if people pay attention and can read between the lines, which most can't, they just take what they get on the news and they just, eat their TV dinner and go to bed. But if people can really pay attention and read between the lines, they're going to have an opportunity to change the way that they're going to live, or it's going to get worse. I really think there's about to be a big divide in people in general, and people are such prisoners of convenience that it's just going to make it easier to increase the security around you.
Right?
People get off on this thing thinking that they have more freedoms, like they get on Twitter or whatever, and get mad if they get banned, or that they freedom of speech. You don't own Twitter. You don't own your account. It's not freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is you can say whatever you want in a public area. You can't get on YouTube. You can't get on Twitter. You don't own those things, but people think they own them. But now they're getting so connected to these things as like, this is mine. No, you're theirs. You are theirs. You are the reason why it's free is because they're using you to pay. Whether it's your data, your information, your user experience, you're being sold. All the stuff you do on these free systems is being sold to other companies. And then people keep moving into these situations where they keep contracting themselves. And I think it's even more than just signatures. It's personal contracts. People are making personal life contracts to things they won't give up. They won't give up their phone. I go to the gym 5 days out of the week. 95% of the people in the gym are on their phone.
Dude, don't get in the way. I'm filming myself.
Oh, filming themselves a whole
bro.
Oh my God.
Oh, bro.
That I cannot. I have no patience for it.
I have seen so many guys online, on YouTube, whatever shorts, fighting over somebody walking in front of their filming themselves doing a workout. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, are you serious right now? I mean, I didn't know we were allowed to have cameras on the floor of a gym.
It used to be the opposite. If you remember back in the day, there used to be pictures and not pictures, signs that would say no flash photography. I remember that for years, no flash photography. They scared me. So why would you even bring a camera to the gym? Now, today, literally saw today near the squat racks machine, because that's where most people like to film themselves. It says potential filming may occur in this area. Like, what? Now we're allowing it?
You know what's funny, Carmel, is just to have a little lighter side of this conversation. I went to Orange Theory.
Oh, okay.
And I got my butt handed to me 2 days ago, and I'm like doing a simple bend over or squat. I'm in severe pain right now. Like that stressed back, that aching muscle kind of pain. So it's kind of funny, but I did want to share with you, and I wanted to ask you a question, totally off topic. I'm on a carnivore diet for now 4 days. I feel differently.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I can't even begin to tell you. It's meat, cheese, dairy, and that's it. And eggs, but that's it. And I'm not hungry. I'm getting the good fats. I'm getting the good eggs, the good meats, and everything that I've studied on this. I'm going to share my experience with people. I've already dropped 5 pounds in 4 days, but everything that I'm going to share on this is like, my question to you is how long do you really have to be on it before you hit, ketosis, where you start just burning a lot of fat?
I think it's like 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
And I did the carnivore diet, the strict carnivore diet, for like a month. A partner of mine where I used to work, he did it for like, I'm going to say 2 months. Both of us, like, I was noticing his results. And the biggest thing he said to me wasn't just losing the fat or increasing his testosterone, but it was loss of inflammation. He said he had like a bad ankle, he had gout, he had some other stuff going on. He says, you would think gout would get worse. He says, I don't feel a thing in my foot. My knee doesn't hurt. I don't know what it is. So I said, okay, I'm going to try it. I have a bad knee in football, and it's always bothered me. 2 weeks in, no inflammation.
No, so that's why I made the decision. Number one is inflammation. Number two, weight, which relates to all health related things going on. But I'm doing it. I'm happy to say I've been on it. I've been faithful to it, and it's only 4 days in now. But it's really kind of cool at night. I'm grabbing a stick of cheese or something if I get a snack. I'm not doing sugars. I'm not doing coffee. I'm not doing alcohol. I'm not doing any of the things that normal people would do. And I'm trying to stay away from anything that's not on that meat and dairy diet. I'm having yogurts. I'm having which a lot of people don't think should be included in the carnivore diet, but if it comes from an animal, it's okay.
It's plain yogurt. Yeah, it's the ones which the non-fat ones are bad for you. We'll say that. Stay away from non-fat yogurt because
no, it's fat everything. I'm doing whole milk. I'm doing everything.
For sure.
And,
no, I say when I got back off of it, I didn't really change my diet much. I didn't add much bread and vegetables. It's hard for people to hear this, but so many vegetables are actually bad for you because they're hybrid.
Not just bad, but they're carcinogenic. They're full of pesticides, and people, even organic guys, we're not, my mom, love you, Mom, grew up a vegetarian. I only got one steak a month, man. One steak. I was starving for meat growing up, And my mom now was a 40-year vegetarian, now turning towards meat because that is the only thing that is sustaining her mass. And she is skinny and she needs to eat more meat. And so we've been showing people and everything that I'm doing from a study standpoint of, MS, from diseases that have no cause or reason or rhyme. The carnivore diet seems to be settling them out. Skin disease, sclerosis, or whatever it's called.
Not to mention Alzheimer's and dementia directly related.
Alzheimer's and dementia, you start immediately firing back again with the carnivore diet.
Mm-hmm.
And the trick is not buying cheap stuff. Yeah, you got to buy. And this is why they want to get rid of meat. This is why they want to make a byproduct that is like meat, but not meat. It doesn't have the enriched fat. It doesn't have the minerals. It doesn't have the salts. It doesn't have the protein that meat has.
So
it'll do two things. No vegetarian wants to hear this.
No, they don't. It's scary, but it's going to reduce muscle mass. It's going to make men less manly. It's going to completely debilitate people's mental state, and you're going to create a bunch of just invalids.
One of the statements here in the YouTube chat, and I agree, children of the true king are free. Let me add to that, are free to make an informed decision to become the slave and the surety of a subclass kingdom known as the United States, or known as their government.
I'm glad you said that, because I agree with this person, what they said. And someone in the other TikTok thing said something similar about, yeah, we're children of God, and we should be, yeah, but you've been given free choice.
They say we are free. And that's why God says, if you're free, then why am I asking my people to come out of her?
We made choices, folks.
Yeah.
Like, and the thing about it is, you've been told several places in the Bible to be in the world, but not of the world. You've been told to be wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove. Not just the dove and not just a serpent. You're supposed to be both. You're supposed to have the mental state. You're supposed to be beguiling, smart, cunning, because this is not easy to maneuver and navigate. The stuff we've been mentioning in this hour-long show, there's so many things to figure out, but you're supposed to figure it out. You're supposed to be the serpent and the dove. You have the opportunity to be as powerful as you want to be and as completely weak as you want to be. The choice is yours. You've been not free will.
100%. Closing comments, brother. I got to eat some steak.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm starving. I need to get my protein on. Closing comments. I definitely want to have this continuation on this, because one thing I think we need to do is give people practical steps. Because one thing someone mentioned in this TikTok live was, okay, if I get a job tomorrow, do I use my social? How do I start maneuvering around these things that have been so...
Let's do that the next time. Let's talk about what the practical steps are that people can do on their own to help themselves, because they don't understand. It's not them getting a job. They're the performance behind the U.S. citizen, which is the birth certificate, which got the driver's license, which ultimately got the job. You're coming along and you're saying, I'm going to be the surety and the U.S. citizen. I'm going to fill out a W-4. And those are practical things that we can help people with that can help them have a degree of freedom right now, just to secure a non-contract contract, like be able to work utilizing a new signature called non-assumptive, utilizing different ways to contract with corporate employers. But great question, Carmel.
Yeah.
My closing comment, just there's so many people out there that have truth to what they say, just like this gentleman right here saying children of the true king are free. And that is true. They are free indeed. But the reality is we have to really be, like you said, wise as a serpent, but soft as a dove, and smarter than them. And so we need to utilize the tactics of what they are doing against us. We need to utilize those same tactics against them. So they want to play games with contracts. They want to play games with adhesion trust. We're going to play those games. And that's really what we teach at HISadvocates, is how to be soft as the dove, remain quiet and silent, but free as a child under God, away from those contracts. So always good talking to you, my man. You're a good buddy and a friend. Look forward to maybe hitting that cigar bar soon and enjoying a stogie together. So let me know when you got some time, but I'll see you next week for our 25th episode of Mancave Classified.
Silver. All right, bro. Look forward to it.
Have a good one. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week, Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific. Have a good one, Carmel.